Bridget was 28 years old and lived in a quiet small town where life moved slowly and people knew each other by name. She grew up in a strict religious family, the kind that believed words still mattered and promises were not meant to be broken. Her parents taught her that love was sacred, not casual, and that marriage was not something to rush into just because the world told you to move faster. In their home, love was spoken about with patience, care, and responsibility. Because of those lessons, Bridget grew up with a deep belief that stayed with her into adulthood. She believed that intimacy should come after commitment, not before it. She believed that waiting was not a punishment or a fear, but a choice. A conscious one. She was not naive, and she was not sheltered. She simply knew what she wanted to protect: her heart, her body, and her sense of self. In college, her choice often made her stand out. While others talked openly about dating, breakups, and weekend adventures, Bridget listened quietly. Some friends teased her. Some laughed and called her old-fashioned. A few said she was wasting her youth. But Bridget never felt embarrassed. She never judged them either. She understood that everyone walked a different path, and this was simply hers. She never waited because she was afraid of love. In fact, she believed in love deeply. That was exactly why she waited. To Bridget, love was not something to test casually or rush into under pressure. Love was something that needed respect to survive. At night, she sometimes imagined her future. Not a perfect man, not a luxury life, not a dramatic romance. Her dream was simple. She wanted a partner who would see her values and not try to change them. A man who would not ask her to cross her own boundaries just to keep him. Someone who understood that waiting did not mean weak, and faith did not mean foolish. In a world that moved faster every year, Bridget chose to move slowly. And she stood by that choice with quiet strength. I wasn't waiting for perfection. I was waiting for respect. Everything began to change the day Bridget met Robert. It happened in a quiet coffee shop, the kind of place where people stayed longer than they planned. Robert stood out immediately. He was confident, well-dressed, and comfortable in his own presence. When he spoke to Bridget, he looked directly at her, as if the rest of the room had faded away. He complimented her gently, not just her appearance, but the way she spoke and listened. It felt intentional. It felt rare. Robert knew exactly how to make Bridget feel special. He listened to her values and said he admired them. He said not many women were like her anymore. He told her she was different, and Bridget wanted to believe that difference mattered to him. Soon, he began calling her every day. Messages arrived each morning and night. Flowers appeared without warning. His attention was intense, warm, and constant, like a light she had never stood in before. When Bridget told her close friend Molly about him, Molly's expression changed. She hesitated before speaking, then warned her carefully. Robert, she said, was known for moving fast. He fell in love quickly and left just as quickly. He did not like waiting. He liked excitement, not patience. Molly told Bridget to protect her heart. Bridget listened, but she did not accept the warning. She believed that people could change when they met the right person. She believed her love, her faith, and her values could slow Robert down. She wanted to believe that what they had was different. Hope is quiet, but powerful, and it often speaks louder than caution. One evening, after a long dinner filled with laughter and soft music, Robert drove Bridget home. The car stopped outside her house, and for a moment neither of them moved. He turned toward her, his voice lower, more serious. He said he could not stop thinking about her. Then, without waiting for permission, he leaned in and kissed her. It was Bridget's first kiss. She had imagined it many times, always in a future shaped by marriage and certainty. But in that moment, she did not pull away. The kiss was gentle, but it crossed a line she had guarded for years. When it ended, she felt both joy and confusion, warmth and fear. Something sacred had shifted. The next day, when Bridget tried to slow things down and spoke about waiting, Robert smiled confidently. He looked into her eyes and said the words that felt like a promise and a solution at the same time. "Then we will marry soon." Bridget wanted to believe him. And for a moment, she did. When someone promises forever too quickly, it feels romantic. Until it doesn't. Las Vegas was loud, bright, and overwhelming, but Bridget barely noticed any of it. She was holding Robert's hand, and to her, that felt like everything. The wedding happened quickly, almost too quickly. A small chapel, white flowers, borrowed vows, and a simple dress she had chosen with shaking hands. There were no friends, no family, no witnesses to her past or her values. Only the promise she believed she was finally living. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Bridget felt tears in her eyes. She truly believed she had reached the ending she had waited for all her life. That night was supposed to be sacred. It was supposed to be gentle, full of love and reassurance. But as the hotel room door closed behind them, something felt wrong. Robert was distant. His smile faded quickly. He opened a bottle of wine, then another. He checked his phone again and again, stepping into the bathroom to take calls he said were work-related. Bridget sat quietly on the edge of the bed, still wearing her dress, listening to the silence stretch between them. Hours passed. The room felt cold despite the lights and luxury. She was married, yet she had never felt more alone. The next morning, Bridget woke up early. She turned toward Robert, expecting tenderness, maybe embarrassment, maybe laughter about how fast everything had happened. Instead, she saw his back as he stood by the window, already dressed. His face was closed, unreadable. When she spoke his name, he did not turn around. "I want a divorce," he said flatly. For a moment, Bridget thought she had misunderstood. The words felt unreal, like a language she did not know. She waited for him to smile, to say it was a joke. He did not. He turned to her then, and his eyes held no warmth at all. "You're too simple for my world," he continued. "You don't belong in it. You waited your whole life for marriage, and look where that got you." Each word landed like a strike. There was no apology, no explanation, no hesitation. The man who had promised forever now spoke as if the night before had been a mistake he wanted erased. Bridget packed her things in silence. Her hands trembled, but she did not beg. She left the hotel alone, carrying not just her suitcase, but the weight of humiliation and disbelief. When she returned home, her family did not welcome her with comfort. They were shocked, angry, and ashamed. Doors closed where she had hoped for arms. Days later, the truth emerged like salt in an open wound. Robert was wealthy, powerful, and well-known. His face appeared in magazines. Their marriage was treated as gossip, a scandal, a joke. To him, it had been a game. Bridget finally understood. "I didn't lose my purity that night. I lost my illusion." Bridget did not cry forever. One morning, she looked at herself in the mirror and realized something important. Losing everything had forced her to finally see herself clearly. She was no longer just the obedient daughter, the faithful girl, or the abandoned wife. She was a woman who had been wronged, and silence would only erase her. With the help of a lawyer, Bridget learned the truth. The marriage in Las Vegas was legal. What Robert had done was not just cruel, it was unjust. Asking for her rights did not mean she was greedy. It meant she refused to disappear quietly. She chose to fight, not with anger, but with clarity. When the court ruled in her favor, it was not about the money. It was about having her voice returned. For the first time since that night, she felt seen, not as a story, not as a mistake, but as a person. Bridget did not go back to live under her parents' rules. Love without understanding had already failed her once. She used what she gained to build something small and real, a modest apartment of her own, a return to her studies, and a life shaped by choice rather than fear. Independence felt unfamiliar at first, but it also felt honest. Her belief in love did not disappear. It changed. She understood now that waiting alone is not enough. Faith without wisdom can be dangerous. Romance without respect is only illusion. Bridget was no longer ashamed of her past. She carried it as knowledge, not a wound. She had lost everything she thought defined her, and found herself instead. Waiting is not weakness. Faith without wisdom is dangerous. Respect is the foundation of love. Like if you believe respect matters more than romance. Comment: would you have fought for justice like Bridget? Subscribe to learn English through real-life stories with depth.